All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dig into the incredible origin story of a company that started with a simple idea and ended up, well, pretty much changing the world, Google. So, first, let's just wrap our heads around how massive Google is today. We're talking hundreds of thousands of servers and data centers scattered all over the globe. It's this giant global machine that basically runs our digital lives. It's kind of hard to even imagine a time before it, right? But this global giant, it didn't start in some shiny, futuristic building. Nope, it started right here. A humble research project at Stanford University with servers that were literally pieced together from borrowed parts and housed in cases made of, yep, you see that right, Lego bricks. Okay, so the big question is, how on earth did that, a collection of borrowed PCs in a Lego box, become the engine for a digital empire? Well, that's exactly what we're about to find out. All right, let's rewind to the mid-90s and get to the heart of it. Because everything, and I mean everything, started with one single game-changing concept. This was the spark. And when I say things happen fast, I mean lightning fast. Check this out. In 1995, two grad students meet. By 1998, just 3 years later, they have a fully incorporated company. In the business world, that's practically the speed of light. So you got to understand the problem they were trying to fix. Back in the mid-90s, the web was the Wild West, total chaos. Yeah, search engines existed, but they were kind of dumb. They mostly just counted how many times a word appeared on a page, which led to this thing called keyword stuffing. People would just cram a word over and over again to get to the top of the search results, even if their site was total junk. So their project, which had the, interesting nickname, Backrub, took a completely different approach. Instead of just looking at what was on the page, they looked at who was looking to the page. In other words, they analyzed how many other websites were linking back to it. And here is the brilliant part, the real aha moment. They realized that backlinks on the web were kind of like citations in a research paper. You know, a paper that gets cited by a ton of other important papers. That's a big deal. It's seen as authoritative. They thought, hey, why can't we do the exact same thing for websites? And that idea gave birth to their secret sauce, the PageRank algorithm. This was the system that could finally make sense of all that messy linking data and turn it into a clear ranking of a page's importance. For the very first time, someone was bringing actual order and relevance to the chaos of the web. So, with an idea that powerful, you just know it's not going to stay a university project for long. The next step was obvious. They had to build a real company around it. First things first, they needed a better name. Backrub was catchy, I guess, but Google, that was perfect. It's a clever play on the word Google, you know, the number 1 followed by 100 zeros. It was the perfect name for their massive ambition, to organize a seemingly infinite amount of information. And you can really see the brand's evolution right here. They went from a logo that was literally a scan of a hand to this playful, colorful design that would go on to become one of the most recognized logos on the entire planet. Their first real bit of funding came in August of '98. A $100,000 check from Andy Bechtolsheim, one of the co-founders of Sun Microsystems. But here's the kicker, a total classic Silicon Valley story. The check was made out to Google Inc., a company that didn't technically exist yet. So they had to scramble and officially file the paperwork to create the company just so they could cash the check. And that initial seed money was just the beginning. By June of 1999, they landed their first major venture capital round, $25 million. And from that point on, the growth was just explosive. To keep that fire going and really take their mission global, Google needed a ton of capital. And that led them to one of the most anticipated events in tech history, their initial public offering, or IPO. The hype was just off the charts. The Berkeley Technology Law Journal called it arguably the most talked about IPO of 2004. Seriously, everyone in the tech and finance worlds was watching this. So the whole process kicked into high gear in the spring of 2004, and it all came to a head that August when the company officially started trading on the stock market. But, you know, this is Google we're talking about. They weren't going to do a traditional IPO. Instead, they used a Dutch auction where they let people bid on shares to set the price. It was a pure Google move. It democratized the whole thing, making it accessible to average investors, not just the big Wall Street insiders. And the result was absolutely mind-blowing. The IPO raised $1.67 billion, which instantly gave Google a market capitalization of over $23 billion. And here's where that money went. The vast majority of it, $1.2 billion, went straight back into the company to fund its global expansion. The rest went to the founders, the executives, and those early investors who believed in the idea from the very beginning. So when you boil it all down, you can really see the recipe for success here. You've got a truly revolutionary idea like PageRank. You combine it with some scrappy, resourceful beginnings, you add a bold financial strategy, and you wrap it all up in a one-of-a-kind corporate culture. And that culture was guided by their famous motto, which they actually included in their official IPO prospectus: "Don't be evil." This wasn't just a slogan, it was a public promise that their goal was to do good things for the world. Which leaves us with a final thought. If a simple observation about academic citations could blossom into a company that organizes all the world's information, what seemingly small foundational idea happening right now could be the one that changes our world tomorrow?